Hey everybody, this is Danny Echeverria with the ProAudiofiles.com. Don't you just love how adding a ton of high-end to everything in your mix makes it sound great? Or does it? In this video, I'm going to be taking a look at some ways that low-pass filtering, meaning rolling off high-end, can actually play a really crucial role in a great mix. We're going to be looking at, as an example, a track that I mixed for my very good friend, Max Foreman, that as of January 2021, he just released. It's called State of Decay. It's on an EP that's coming out in March. And let's just take a listen to a little bit of this.
Reading the minds of those who might travel the distance of love in the night and ever longer days.
Okay, so how is low-pass filtering going to figure into this? The number one reason that I like to use low-pass filtering is to clear up space for instruments that need high-end detail. A lot of instruments just don't really have a whole lot of high-frequency information going on. But just like in situations where you would use a high-pass filter, meaning rolling off low-end, to clean up low-frequency mud and rumble to save space for instruments that need those frequencies like bass, kick, etc., that little bit of excess high-end is going to eat up headroom that other instruments might need to have that sort of high-frequency detail that you would be looking for there. Some instruments that almost always need a lot of high-frequency information are drums, especially cymbals and hi-hats, vocals for sure, strings, and many orchestral instruments, and anything really that you want to have that sort of upfront high-frequency kind of focus to it. Some instruments that really don't need a lot of high-frequency information are obviously bass, guitars, electric more so than acoustic, but sometimes acoustic too, depending on context, and many synths. And, you know, it's somewhat obvious maybe because many synths are going to have a low-pass filter built into them, so it sort of speaks to how well low-pass filtering works with synths. So I'm actually going to look at this Prophet line in the chorus of this song. Let's solo this out so you can hear it. So as I freeze my frequency analyzer here on the FabFilter EQ I've got going, you can see we've got a lot of 1K and just above and below where the fundamental of the notes are sitting. We can see there's some pretty important harmonics in the upper mid-range here around 2, 3K. And then we get this real sharp roll-off starting around 5K. Just like I use this high-pass filter here to take care of this unnecessary low-end and low-mid stuff that's going on, I'm going to use a low-pass filter to take care of this unnecessary high-end that might be eating up some real estate that I'd rather save for the vocals, the guitars, etc. So let's drop in a low-pass filter. I mentioned 5K as the point where the drop-off starts. So let's try that as the cutoff of the filter and see how this sounds. I don't think that sounds too bad, but I'm going to be a little more conservative. I'll bring it up to 7K or so. And let's take another listen. I'm going to bypass just this filter and listen not only to the synth, which I don't really think is hurting too much for having this filter on it, but also listen to the vocals, listen to the acoustic guitar. And I know that I just mentioned acoustic guitar is an instrument that you can get away with low-pass filtering sometimes, but in this mix, we felt like some high-end sparkle was important for it. And then listen to the detail in the drums as well. So we'll start with this bypassed. I'll bring it in. I'll bypass it again and listen to the whole mix rather than just focusing on this synth.
Of those who might travel the distance of love in the night and ever longer days.
So with this filter engaged, I hear this crispness and breathy quality to the vocals that I really like. And I hear some sparkle in the acoustic guitars with much more clarity. It can be kind of subtle, but it makes a big difference in a dense mix. And if you find that you have trouble hitting the sweet spot where you're filtering out enough high end to make a difference, but you feel like you're compromising something in the tone of the track that you're filtering, a nice way to sort of split the difference is to add a resonant peak to your filter. So I'm just doing that by adjusting the Q on this this synth here. And that gives just a little boost in the frequencies just south of the cutoff of the filter. One last time, let's just listen to how this sounds.
City light, reading the minds of those who might.
Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. So that brings me to the second reason that you might want to use low-pass filtering in your mixes, which is to push supporting elements into the background. In nature, sounds that are farther away from us tend to sound darker to our ears. And in a mix, sounds that we make darker tend to sound farther away. So one obvious choice for a track that maybe belongs in the background of a mix is background vocals, right? It's in the name. So I've got another Pro Q on my harmony vocals here. And I'm gonna throw in a low pass filter. I'm not gonna go as aggressive on this one because these are vocals and they do need a little bit more of that high frequency stuff that's going on than that synth did. But I think a cutoff of around 10K is a good starting point. Let's take a listen to how they sound.
City light, reading the minds of those who might.
I think that sounds pretty good. And I'm going to give you an A-B in a second. And what I want you to listen for is that we still get the notes of this harmony part. We still get the presence of the vocals just fine, but that lead vocal comes into a little bit sharper relief when this filter is engaged. And that might not always be what you're going for. There's definitely valid reasons to want your backup vocals right up front with a lead vocal for sort of a big close upfront vocal sound. But in this case, I want these backup vocals to be a little bit more supporting of the lead vocal. So again, I'm going to start with it bypassed and then I'll engage it and listen more to what is happening to the lead than to the backups.
City light, reading the minds of those who might travel the distance of love in the night and ever longer days.
So again, I don't really feel like I'm losing those backup vocals, but I feel like the lead vocal sort of claims its place as the lead in a way that I really like. So I'm going to go with it. So that brings me to the third way that you might consider using some low-pass filtering in your mixes, which is a little bit more specific of an application than the concepts I was just talking about. But that is to combine a low-pass filter with some saturation to create a brutal parallel bass track. This isn't a very brutal song, but maybe you're looking for some like window rattling low end in a mix and you're having a hard time getting it. And you try boosting the low end on the bass with EQ, but it feels a little bit flubby because maybe the low end is a little uncontrolled and it's just not working right. So what I've got here is I have this bass sub parallel track. It's been muted. I'm gonna set it free, unmute it, and I'm gonna throw on a low pass filter, my TDR Nova. And here I'm actually just gonna set the cutoff at 200 Hertz. I'm choosing 200 Hertz because what I'm looking for here is a cutoff that lets through the fundamental frequency of the bass line and maybe one or two orders of harmonics above that. I'm going to be using a lot of saturation. And so I want to be adding saturation off of the notes of the bass part, but I don't want to be adding harmonics on top of harmonics. So that's why I'm filtering out this mid-range, because if I start adding that kind of dense harmonics with the saturation I'm about to use, that can really clutter up the mid-range. So I'm looking for focused low end that's going to speak clearly on smaller speakers. And so that's sort of the goal of this. So for that saturation, I've got my decapitator, truly a necessary plugin in my world. And I'm just going to dial this up to where I like it. And then we'll see where we're at.
City light, reading the minds of those who might travel the distance of love.
Okay, so I got my drive up to where the needle was up in the red. I started to really hear this parallel bass track working. And then I realized that I was hearing a little bit of fizziness that I wanted to get rid of. So I used the high cut on this decapitator to chill that out a little bit. And what you will find when you use this sort of technique is that a little really goes a long way. I've got this at minus 16 or so right now. I might even push it a little lower. And in fact, this trick tends to work so well at enhancing low frequencies that I'm actually going to finish it off with a high pass filter just a gentle 6 dB per octave high pass filter at about 60 hertz. And I'm going to get this dialed into taste. I'm going to bring it up from 0 so you can really hear what it's adding.
City life, reading the minds of those who might travel the distance of love in the night and ever long.
So what I'm hearing is a really powerful and consistent low end that also has enough harmonics that it's going to speak clearly on smaller speakers and sound systems. Honestly, this is a finished mix. This is a released song. And I like the bass where it was, but I could also see some clients or some artists saying, no, I really want that window rattling low end. And if you have a hard time getting it by just EQing up low end, this is a great way to get there. Okay, that's all I got. Hopefully now you see that there are some great ways that you can use low pass filtering to enhance your mixes. These are certainly not the only ways. And if you've got some tricks you like to do using low pass filtering, let me know in the comments. Let's keep this conversation going. Until next time, once again, I am Danny Echeverria with theproaudiofiles.com. This track was by Max Foreman. You can find him on Instagram at FaxMormon. Until next time, happy mixing, everybody. Peace.